All right, what's up, everybody? I'm NJ, and I'm here with Don Thacker. He is the director and just everything of the game Starr Mazer. What's up, man?
Hey, dude, I'm actually not the everything. We've got a talented team of 9 working on it, plus 22 musical artists, so I don't want to take the credit for everything. It is my game. I did make the game up. It is I'm directing and writing and working on the game. I'm not the lead writer, but I'm definitely in charge of story and all that. So getting into a car, you'll have to excuse that. Okay, cool. Should sound great. But yeah, no, hi. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure thing, man. Sure thing. All right, so I've done a post about Starr Mazer already, but give us the inside scoop. What's going on with the game? Tell us about it.
All right, Starr Mazer is a science fiction story game. Maybe that's see. Anytime I try to lock a genre, people get all like hung up on the genre. It's been called a story game, a point and click adventure shmup game. It's an action game. It's just a game, man. Yeah, we use heavily the point and click adventure trope as well as the horizontal scrolling shooter. Um,
The shmup.
the shmup action mechanic, an H shmup mechanic. Um, but that's your travel mechanic and your some of your action mechanic. But I'd like to put out there. We've been having a lot of questions about what actually Starr Mazer is and how do we staple two disparate genres together. And the truth is we don't. We're not stapling two genres together at all. We're not taking like it's not that we half of our team wanted to make a shmup and the other half wanted to make a point and click,
Yeah.
and thus we kind of slammed them together. We're making a single unified game experience that has multiple mechanics. I love using this example. I'm going to use it publicly. I think for the first time. Um, you if I were to say, let me pick two genres. If I were to say, hey, I'm going to make a video game that's basically Mario meets Flappy Bird, right? Like platformer
Yeah.
versus whatever Flappy Bird is. That seems a bit rough, right? Like how are we going to mix those two genres? It seems almost not impossible, but it seems like it'd be hard to get to, right?
Right.
Okay, but check it out. Go to any Super Mario game and swim. What are you doing? You're playing Flappy Bird, right? You
Right.
jump into the water and you're playing Flappy Bird. You touch anything above or below you, you die. You have to keep pushing A to stay up and moving. You're playing Flappy Bird in the water. But that's
Right.
just Mario. It's just part of the Mario experience. You run and you jump, and sometimes you jump into that water. In Starr Mazer, you point and click, you tell stories, you share an adventure, and sometimes you get into a ship and fly around. It's just part of the game experience. We can act as though they're perfectly disparate, but they're super not. In fact, you might throw out the argument, well, in Mario nothing changes graphically, but that's totally not true.
Right.
The way the camera actually attaches to Mario changes dramatically when you're underwater. Mario has a much wider dead zone when in the platform sections, whereas the camera tracks with him more closely when he's going up and down in the water sections. Also, in Starr Mazer, the camera stays on Brick, the main character, as he gets into the Star Wolf, and then pulls back as he pilots out of the station to establish
Right.
a shmup section. So they're not two disparate genres stapled together for the very first time. I'm not mixing two things that can't be mixed. I'm making a game that leverages what I consider to be the best parts of two of my favorite genres. I am not making a game that's two genres in one, if that makes sense.
Right. 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 On the subject of brick, I just want to throw out that brick metal stonewood is my favorite name of a character
Do,
ever.
do you want an exclusive? I'm going to give you an exclusive. The history of Brick M. Stonewood's name. So, uh, I've got this friend. I've known him for years and years and years and years. He's my closest friend. We were living in Chicago at one point, and it's like a billion degrees below zero, and we're stuck behind this truck that's stuck in the snow. And the truck is a delivery, like a home delivery landscaping service,
Yeah.
and it says brick, comma metal, comma stone, comma wood.
And that just became the name of the character.
And we were like, that is the most metal name ever. That's the coolest,
That's
the
awesome.
manliest name, like brick, metal, stonewood. And then we would call him Brick Stonewood. The M stands for metal. And so we kind of made up this character to fit the name. And then, well, I was already working on the concept of Starr Mazer for a long time, but I hadn't really locked down the main character. And I knew that he was kind of this like space cowboy machismo dude who'd have to learn throughout the story that, machismo isn't the only answer, right?
Right.
So, a good way to do that is to start full bore. So we went with that name that we were throwing around, Brick Stonewood. Brick Stonewood. It's good. It works. We love
That's
it.
so awesome. Yeah, that's seriously, I've like the coolest. I can't get over it. It's my favorite thing ever.
It's good. It's
Um,
good.
yeah, it's great. On the subject of like the game's story, can you say anything about it without spoiling like the premise or?
No, yeah, I'm not going to spoil the premise. The premise is simple. Brick is he's basically in kind of a Han Solo position. He's a mercenary, and he's a mercenary not because he's a bad dude or a thief or anything, but he's a mercenary because he used to be the best DSP Mark II pilot in the Great War. Except that the Great War was 130 years ago, and
Right.
Brick has been lost in what's called the Baratha Divide, which is a vast expanse of nothing. His escape pod and recovered ship were floating around in the divide for 130 years, and he was in effectively cryogenic sleep. He's unlocked from this frozen state to a world in which humankind is almost gone. Humans are regarded as like the worst people because we basically started the Great War.
Right.
Um, and humans are untrusted and they're looked down on. And he went from being like the hero of humankind to effectively being shit on by everybody. His worldview has completely changed. He's also living in a much more integrated society. If we wanted to make an analog, I'd say like he was a war hero from 1957,
Mhm.
kind of thrown into a modern world where things are a little different,
Yeah.
man. Like you cannot refer, and you should. I'm not saying that you could ever, or that it made sense ever, or was good ever to do so, but I don't think the amount of mixed company in which you could say the word Jap in a negative way, or in any way for that matter. I think that pool has shrunken a great deal over
Mhm.
time, and we've become more global and more enlightened and more like good people, right?
Right.
But there was a time where you could be a good homemaking family man who went and served his country and was amazing. The worldview is different, right? There was a lot more us versus them kind of stuff. Brick is from a world where the Great War was humanity's last pitch to save itself and the small number of extraterrestrial planets that it had encountered. They were the heroes. So Brick is imagine how terrible it would be to go serve your country in World War II, for example, with fighting the good fight and the actual good fight, right?
Right.
And coming home to find that by the time you're ready to pass on, the world has changed to such a degree that you're 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 effectively forgotten. Your efforts were forgotten.
Right.
Your everything was forgotten. I think immediately referring to the Vietnam War and when soldiers would come back and get spit on and yelled at and people were protesting the government but blaming the soldiers who were drafted. I mean, they
Right.
were
Didn't have a
illegal. It would
choice.
be illegal not to go.
Right.
But they were shit on, and I think that there's a I'm trying to now. Granted, this game's like a drama, comedy, action, fun game, but there's definitely a deep core to it. And Brick being a man out of time, I'm trying to deal with this really complicated issue of being a legitimate hero, but finding out that heroism is not what you thought.
Right.
Being a hero in the Great War is a different thing than being a hero in a totally integrated and far less clear cut environment, and that's the world that Brick is awakened into,
Right.
which allows for hundreds and hundreds of really great adventures. The reason it's really cool to talk about this, and I'm not going to spoil the story, is that the story is procedurally chunked. We're internally calling it procedurally loved. The story is it's stitched together out of very, very clear, distinct, really well thought out story elements, but your actions determine what story bits you get and how those story bits start and end.
Right.
So the overall arc will remain similar. By the end, you will, if you're good at it, you'll somehow figure out a way to make Brick a hero. But what does that mean? That's up to you. And I think that's an incredible advantage that we've got. We've taken two game styles that tends to have limited replayability, right? Because once you memorize all of the patterns in like a shooter, it can kind of get old unless you want to just impress your friends.
Right.
And once you play through any like single story and a point and click, that however long they make that game is how long they've got you. After that, you're done.
You're done. There's no replayability.
When I was a kid, I hated that. I very much wanted to experience those experiences much more. But when you're a kid, and you don't have anything to do. You can memorize every shmup. You
Exactly.
can play through every point and click, and then you get to the point where you're done with it. So I didn't want to be done with this, and we're trying to make a game that as difficult as it might sound, we've reduced the mechanics to do this to such a degree that we think we can. We want to make a game that's what we're calling that has a finite amount of infinite replayability. I know that sounds really weird, but the idea is as long as we keep dropping content, we've reduced the number of steps it takes us to make new content. And every time we make new content, it irrevocably changes exponentially the game world.
Right.
So at minimum effort, we can maintain the growth of this. So your playthrough is always going to be a 10 to 12 hour experience, and you'll get a complete story, and you'll enjoy it. But your next playthrough might be different. We've been comparing it to the Stanley Parable and Minecraft.
Right.
The Stanley Parable in that your every little choice affects the story, and it's seamlessly stitched together. And some of it calls out, like for instance, we have a time travel mechanic that lets you play previous versions of the game.
Right.
Which is
the game's an episodic format, right?
correct. Yeah. But I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Or let me refactor that statement. The game is a season. So when you get the game, the first version of the game in April 2016, we're gonna call it the pilot season of the game,
Right.
which is a 10 to 12 hour experience. Inside of that 10 to 12 hours, there are episodes, which are the little story modules, and a season is a bunch of those stacked together. Which ones you get during a playthrough and how they affect your gameplay are all based on what you do. How you get in and out of them are different. I like using the idea of a choose your own adventure as a model, not as, of course, it's far more complicated than that, but imagine if you had a choose your own adventure in which you meet a dog in an alleyway. That's like page 9 is meet a dog in an alleyway, right?
Right.
If you make the choices up to page 9, so on page 3 you lose your dog, and then you talk to somebody, the grocer, and he tells you some information, and then it jumps you to page 9. Meeting a dog in an alleyway is like the reunion of you and your dog. If on page 3 it turns out you never got a dog because you're terrified of dogs, and your worst fear would be being trapped in a contained area with a dog, and then you jump to page 9, you meet a dog in an alleyway. It's the same object, meet a dog in an alleyway, right? The same content,
but the perspective is completely different.
Completely different. So that's how those episodes will be entered and exited through different perspectives and different organizational patterns every time you play. Especially since
calling this open-middled gameplay. Right?
Correct. Yeah, we made that up because it didn't exist before. So we're calling it OMG, open middle gameplay. The OMG thing is
name.
Well, it's not just marketing. The idea is you want to be surprised, like that. OMG, that like sort of oh my god,
yeah.
That surprise is what we want to deliver in the middle every time. I was baffled by Mass Effect 3, right? Like I played all the Mass Effect games. I wasn't like I don't wear an N7 gear, and I wasn't like cosplaying as a Krogan or whatever. But I have played those games, and people were ruined when they got to the end and it wasn't the ending that they wanted. They went completely crazy. And I think what's really interesting about that is they had all invested so much in their playthrough that the ending, when it was discordant with those people, they loved their characters so much that when you got to the end was effectively not really what you'd done. You got like it was just like, we're going to tell our story, and that was their line. Like, we're telling our story. I hated that idea. I actually didn't have a problem with the ending because I wasn't super invested, so I didn't love my playthrough as much. I think at the time I was playing through Skyrim.
Yeah, but the game has such a huge cult following, and the discordance between the players' wants and the writers' wants are so huge.
Yeah, so we're doing something completely different. We're not writing a story. Mm-hmm. We have a goal we want to give out. That sounds weird. I don't want that to be like the soundbite you take. We are not writing a story. We're definitely writing a story. We're writing a story about a man out of time needing to deal with his heroicism and what that means. But we're writing elements, we're writing events,
Right.
and we're writing. Basically, we're writing. You know, if you're one of the Skyrim fans who can play 80 hours of Skyrim without completing the second mission, we're writing a game for you. Like we're writing the game where you can figure out who Brick is through your actions. But imagine a world where you burned a town in Skyrim, or you fought a dragon in Skyrim, and it affected everything you did from
Everything
that point
else,
on.
yeah.
So we're building elements. Traditional game design says I'm going to build a bartender, and you're going to talk to the bartender, and you can, when you talk to the bartender, it will set a variable that says has talked to bartender, and the story can branch off one of X number of ways that the writer has written that thing,
Yeah.
and that will carry you on to the next piece of story. We're not doing that. We're building a bartender. The bartender will observe his universe. He'll basically just cheat. He'll have an access to all of the world's variables, and he'll only care about the ones he cares about. When we write the bartender will only be concerned about how many people are at the bar, what's happening at the bar. He doesn't know who Brick is, and he doesn't have this weird tie to Brick. In most games, whoever you talk to talks to you in a special way, right?
Right.
Because you're the player. The bartender will just be a bartender. If you steal from the bartender, he'll get pissed and tell the police. If the police are told that they'll try to attack you, but not because you're Brick and you're pushing the story along, but because you stole from the bartender. And their only job is to wait to be told that something happened. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have all these
Yeah.
simple systems, hundreds and hundreds of these simple systems that, when stacked together, make very complex gameplay that poses a very we've kind of turned game development upside down. It's not programming complexity that we've created. In fact, most of the tools, at least in alpha or in some cases beta form, exist to make the game right now.
Yeah.
Um, we've moved the complexity from programming to character and story development. So my team, the team that I'm directly the head of, the writer, myself, the asset makers, it's our job to basically program the flow of the game by making little creatures who all live in a world together and respond different ways.
Right.
Novel, and we know that every time we drop one in, it exponentially changes the reactions of all of the others. So we're leaving a lot of that open. I mean, I'd love a world where somebody can play through Starr Mazer and have an interaction that I didn't plan. That's kind of the goal. And yes, there are a million of procedural games and a bunch of roguelikes, all this other stuff. We're not randomly generating a thing, though. So having something novel is important, but we are, like, for instance, fully voicing all of the characters. So every line of dialogue that every character speaks, all, at this point, tens of thousands projected, we will record. Which
Right.
sounds insurmountable, but I just did a Ludum Dare game where we recorded 1,200 lines in 6 hours.
Wow.
So we have a year and a couple months to make this happen. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well, that's I'm super excited. On I do want to talk about, on the subject of replayability. You're talking about this coming out in seasons, right? So it comes out at different time periods, and
Right.
you play through the game. Will players have the opportunity to play through it one way, keep that playthrough as it is, and then go back and play it a completely different way, and then be able to continue them both on different seasons?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Yeah, save states are something that we're super sold on. I don't like the idea that death is permanent in a game, unfortunately, just because I'm 35 and I want to, like, be able to screw up, and I
Yeah.
want to, like, be able to go do other things and come back to a game and love it. I also like the idea of entering a season. Like, if season 2 comes out, if the game is a success, and we decide, oh man, let's pump it up, let's turn everything to 11 and make, like, a way bigger game. If that happens, I'd like it to be that I finished the game with Brick in different places, different times, and I want to start the second season with that Brick. That's definitely the thing I want to do. I want to point out, though, that we're jokingly playing with saves a little bit too. So the more saves you accumulate and the things you do in those saves might actually be a variable that the game takes into account while you're playing the game. Like I said, one of our favorite ideas for time travel mechanics is traveling into an earlier version of a playthrough. Like, if you have another save,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
might actually go affect that playthrough
Yeah.
by traveling into that save. And
Remind me
see,
remind me after we're done. I want to throw a game thing at you. Just
okay,
a
cool.
question. But yeah.
Sure, sure.
Okay. I don't know, how much time do you have?
I have as long as you want, man.
Okay. Well, I got a whole list of questions I haven't even delved into yet.
Ask the question.
All right. Tell me about. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Talk to me about the Jael, or the Gael.
It's just say Gel. Gel works.
Gel. Okay.
Uh, So the Gel are, granted, now remember, we're telling a novel, a new story, but we're using tropes that exist. We have to. That's, to me, the fastest way to, I'm 35. I went through my 20s and tried to make the original story, right? Like, that was a thing. When you're an artist and you're in your 20s, you think, no, I'll do it, though. I'll make the original story.
Hmm.
The one that changes history forever. That doesn't happen. Human beings love this sort of novel approach to things we know. Like that, every story can be simplified to like Aliens, an incredible story. Oh my god, it changed everything. No, it didn't. It was a monster. I'm trapped in a box with a monster. That movie's been told a million times. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? It's the telling of the story that needs to be
that makes the
novel.
difference,
Right?
right?
That's what makes a difference. So you're going to hear a lot of sci-fi tropes, and we did that because we want to have an approachable game, and we'll definitely make it our version, obviously. But the Gel were a race that you'll find out a lot about this very early on in the game. I'm not going to give anything. There's a lot of twists and turns in the game story, but the backstory I can tell you all kinds of stuff about. For instance, the Gel. So the gameplay takes place in 1991, not 1991. It's
Hmm.
1991, but it's mostly because 1991 sounds a lot like
Right.
1991. So 1991. But that 1991 is actually a different time scale from the dating scheme we know. It's 9,091 years after an event. Who knows what the event is? Because the Great War takes place more than a million years from now,
Right.
from 2015. Um, but the Great War was the an effect of uh, the Gel appearing on a planet called Tersa, which some people think may have, but there are these things that are called candidate planets, and
Hmm.
a candidate planet is a planet that may or may not actually be Earth. Humans have lost track of where Earth actually is, because generation upon generation, just like I mean, we have tons of examples of this in real life. Like we don't know where a particular recipe, like a word, comes from, or
Right.
a meal, or like the methodology used to bend metal a certain way or to form metal. We don't know exactly where it came from. It's believed that blah blah blah, right? So one of the candidate planets is called Tersa, and it's a mostly water planet, like all of the candidate planets are. Most of the candidate planets are exactly like Earth. They've got large land masses, mostly water, the same kinds of stuff. So one of the candidate planets called Tersa, the Gel land on the planet and do nothing. There's a giant capital ship, buries itself into the ocean, uh, sticking out like a giant tower from the ocean, and doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything for about 100 years. Over the course of this 100 years, the planet, mostly humans, uh, unify to create a warrior caste to defeat this terrible alien menace, which hasn't done
Which
anything.
hasn't done anything. Wow, this
Yeah,
sounds like real life or something.
it kind of does. Let's not talk about that. Science fiction has always been a way to discuss elements of reality that
Yeah.
people either aren't comfortable with discussing or are not allowed to discuss. So
Right.
we definitely are employing that, but it's fun, and that's the whole point. I want to be able to say some stuff, but I also want to be able to have some fun. So the Gale don't do a thing. We create a whole warrior cast to defeat them. But it turns out that 100 years they've spent doing nothing has also not actually been nothing. They have been observing us, not in a negative or dark way. Their entire species is on that ship. Their planet was lost in the explosion of a star 10,000 years previous, and they've been trying to find a way to colonize a planet, but they're extremely conscious about affecting ecologies and life. They're actually like the nicest people. Um,
But they're not people.
they're not people; they're aliens.
Right.
So who the hell are they?
Yeah, exactly.
They want to have what they call the zero effect, which is they want to go to a planet that can support them, but they don't want to change anything dramatically. When they come to Tersa, they're actually using a reverse ionization system with their ship. Their ship is actually converting seawater into fresh water, and then resalting it. In that process, they take energy enough to recharge their large capacitors.
Hmm.
Um, but they have zero effect. The only effect that they have is a spatial displacement by actually taking up space in the
Right.
ocean. But they've accounted for that and filled a bunch of baffles with water so as not to displace or disrupt sea life as much as possible. They're really nice people.
Yeah.
except they're not people. So we attacked the shit out of them, but they have very, very high technology, and they're super able to defend themselves. Until finally, again, we spend 100 years engineering a way to blow them the fuck up, and we succeed. We break through the defenses, and when they fight back hard. They fight back in a devastating display. They never attack. They only respond, and every time they respond, they wipe everything out. And they cry at the end. They have this thing called Gel Song, which is them effectively like crying that they've had to like damage things and hurt people. It's the
Right.
worst. But we're relentless. And I say we as in humankind. And this is an evolved humankind. This is a million years from now. I'm not making any statements about now and life and racism and socio-political. No, no, no. This is a million years from now. Has nothing to
Not
do.
us. Different people.
Different people. Yeah. But they there's a whole government that's created. The Terza is unified, but the government has created this aristocracy class that lives on these shell cities that float around the planet, and then like the lower caste and lower class are living on the planet and like providing money and effort toward the war machine, and it's just this big terrible thing. But finally we fight the Yellow and we force them off the planet. That's great. We kill most of them. They get off the planet by sending effectively a robotic steward and hundreds of thousands of embryos into space. That's that. Then we wipe out their entire species, and then we celebrate because that's what people do.
Because that's what
And
people do.
yeah, and then things go on, and the gal get lost. Their their little space potty thing gets lost in the Baratha Divide. Um, so you think that the Great War probably has to do with the Gel? It doesn't. It started there, but we used the Gel technology that we found to create a singularity, new age of robotics and artificial intelligence based on Gel technology. The artificial intelligence doesn't like being oppressed, starts to kill us. We start to kill it. It enlists the help of alien species. We get into a giant war. Then the war rages. The war rages for 200 years. Um, so the Gel are now off in the Baratha Divide. Uh, robots, sentient robots, and aliens are fighting humans. Humans have enlisted the help of other aliens, and now it's just a big World War '90 clusterfuck. Like nobody,
Right.
everything's mixed, everything's muddled, and the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and everybody's dying. It's the worst. Um, Earth is, all of the Earth candidate planets are being attacked heavily by these alien species, and we create what we call the DSP pilots. The DSP pilots use these leftover rigged ships because we use all our best ships, and our best ships are all destroyed. So they basically take anything that can fly, and they attach to them these ridiculous prototype weapons. Every single one of them gets a new and unique prototype weapon. And that weapon has a 30% chance of just completely destroying the ship that they're flying. The ships are rattly pieces of crap, but I'm not going to say that they're like suicide fighters or kamikaze. They're not. They're like cowboys. Every single one of them is like John Wayne and Clint Eastwood like mixed up. They're like, they get out there, they get into their vessels, and they go fly at those enemy pilots. And this is like 130 years ago.
Right.
So, they do all their stuff, and most of them die. A couple of them, the legendary ones, get lost to the Divide. But they pitch the battle toward mankind. Mankind experiences a new golden age, can change technology. DSP Mark II comes out and this is all during a war,
Right.
because that's what happens in a war. DSP Mark II comes out. It's the coolest vessel. It's the F-16 when I was a kid. It's the highest tech thing. It's the baddest, and all the people who fly them are badasses. They're not the like crazy, insane John Wayne cowboy dudes. No, they're Maverick from Top Gun. You
Right.
know, they're Iceman from Top. They're badasses. They buzz the tower. They are entitled. They get all the ladies. Like that's this kind of really. There are female DSP pilots, by the way. I don't want to be. There are female DSP pilots, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
But they're also very egotistical and very aggressive, just like the male DSP pilots. So DSP Mark II comes out, and the ship itself is really cool. It itself is actually like a fortress. It's really powerful. It doesn't have the giant, crazy weapons of the DSP Mark One, but it's sleeker and faster and higher technology, and it's really the coolest ship and can do all kinds of really neat stuff. The best of these pilots was Brick M. Stonewood. Brick M. Stonewood helped pitch the battle, win the Great War, and got lost to space, and here we are, back to where we started.
Damn. All
Oh,
right.
but I'd like to point out, the Gel in the game, they exist. So what happened? Something happened. Brick's existence is a problem, and the Gel have spent 130 years trapped in the Great Divide with the only idea of humankind being the species that destroyed their entire culture.
Right.
Um, the new version of the Gel have all the technology and all the history of the old Gel, except they're angry. They're angry and
Right.
hateful and spiteful and vindictive. They're a generation we created. They are, I don't know, imagine a theoretical world where we go into a war-torn country, take over the country, arm everybody, and then turn against them. That's kind of,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
like a beautiful alien species that invented a mathematical system, that invented a language, that invented a calligraphy system used by all of their species that know them. I'm not. This is all science fiction.
Yeah. Dang. Wow.
Briggs a badass. It's a fun game. It's about shooting stuff and chasing
You're
ladies.
gonna have fun. We promise.
Yeah, no, it's a fun. It really is a fun game. I'm sorry, I don't want to get all heady about it. It's just when you get into story, I overwrite everything. I don't overwrite it in delivery. Like the game will be delivered with nice
Yeah,
flow and
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
but I can't write a 2-page document without having 100 pages to back it up.
See,
And I
I,
need
I,
to
I
need to
work
have
the same way, so I completely understand. That's how I
cool,
see good
cool,
writers. So,
good. Well, I think by implication you've called me a good writer, and by that implication, I am very excited. Thank you very much.
you're more than welcome. You've certainly got enough backstory on the game to write an entire novel, I'm thinking.
It's
If
actually
you
a
haven't
decalogue.
already.
There's a decalogue that I'm writing, and it has a bunch of short stories that have already been published. And it's not about the game. Starr Mazer is a small part of a large universe.
That's so cool. Oh gosh, I'm nerding out about this so hard.
Wow!
Okay.
I do the thing.
I want to talk about the music team that you've got lined up.
We
Be
have a music team.
well, the potential music team that you've got lined up, because
Yeah, yeah.
I have never seen a game with this many huge names on
It's
it.
never happened.
Just
We are the first.
so many. Vert, Matsume, Monomer,
Yeah.
just everybody. How did you make this happen?
Oh man, that's okay. It's a combination of luck, talent, hard work, and networking. That's I guess isn't it like everything like
Yeah.
but no we worked on something that seems to inspire people. I don't want to say that sort of like we did the coolest thing. So no, you've seen the trailer, you like it. Everybody who talks to me thinks it's the coolest thing. Luckily, we're backing that up. We're making that game. But we lucked out in that we had I think timing had a little bit to do with it. I know Matsumae-san is joining on because she was looking to do something a little schmuppy and a little story-wise. She's been doing a lot of action-y stuff, right?
Right.
So she's kind of looking for that. She even said so in the video that she posted about us. That she was kind of the time is right for that for her. So for that, there's knowing people who know her and having conversation with them, dealing with the Shovel Knight guys, dealing with Vert. She worked on the Shovel Knight soundtrack, as you remember.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of networking going on. I think the thing that pitches it over is the networking. Alex Ma, our one half owner of Imago Softworks, as well as the sound coordinator and the actual composer for Starr Mazer. He is a legend, and people know who he is. So if I go to somebody and be like, "Hey, Daniel Cannon, you want to be in my game?" I'm sure he'll be like, "Sorry, dude, I have like way too many cool things to do, and that's not part of it." But if Alex Mara comes and talks to him, by default, Alex Mara working on a thing is a big deal. So him working on a thing and then asking somebody for help, that he gets respect because
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
deserves that respect. He's an incredible artist who has a legacy. Sorry, my beard is kind of itchy. But anyway, this beard is new, by the way. It's about a year old, a
It
year and
looks
a half
good,
old.
dude.
Thanks, man. I'm liking it. I got the Zangief going.
Yeah, it works.
Um, anyway, there's that, and so on top of that, though, I think the thing that tips it over is we send them artwork uh, other music from the game, and the trailer, and some concept stuff. And we sent it to a bunch of people. A lot. Okay, so we sent it to probably 8 people. Um, it started trickling. It started like combining. People started asking us. People who I would never think to ask.
Yeah.
People who were like legends. We're gonna make an announcement this week. I think it's tomorrow. That's just like mind-boggling. It's just like it's already mind-boggling. But there's at least 2 more artists that we're adding that are just, oh my god, I can't believe it. But they came to us, and that was baffling.
Yeah.
It was baffling. But they'd seen the lineup and they'd heard the music and they were watching some of the videos that we're releasing of people doing bits, and it's just incredible. So I think all this means is we've got a cool thing that people want to be part of making. And I know that sounds ethereal and a little hard to pin down because I think it is. I'm not going to say that, well, of course, it's me. Of course, Animal Cannon, it's me. Or whatever. I'm nobody. I'm just this guy. But we do have a property that a lot of artists are working very hard on. And I think that's conveyed in everything we show, is that it's a bunch of really hardworking artists trying to make something that resonates. Not maybe you don't like the shmup, maybe you don't like retro gaming, maybe you don't like point-click adventure, maybe you don't like pixel art, but there's something in there you see that resonates with you because it's not just one guy's weird idea. It's at this point probably 12 artists working consistently to make a thing work. Other artists are attracted to that, man. I'm attracted to that. Like, that's incredible. Shovel Knight was a game that the minute I saw it go on Kickstarter, I backed it myself. I had two of I have a game company and a film company. We backed the hell out of it. We wanted it. It was a big deal. So, yeah, I think an artist sees art and wants to participate. We're lucky. We're absolutely lucky. I don't want to say for a second that we're not. We are in a great position right now with music. The only issue is we haven't hit our stretch goal to actually pay those musicians. So we have to get there, obviously. But I don't think I think if we can get the word out, if people can hear that we've got these great people, we'll be well off.
Right. Speaking of goals and such, Kickstarter, what's your experience? I want to know.
Ah, man, this is the worst time to do a Kickstarter. Not in the year. I mean, at all. There was a time you could put anything on Kickstarter and just get $1 trillion out of it.
Yeah.
3 years ago, if we put Starr Mazer on Kickstarter, I think I'd just buy a house and a plane. We're hitting, it seems, we're being told at least, we're hitting all the notes. We're probably gonna hit our goal. That's obvious. Just because statistically, it just looks like we're gonna hit our goal. I'm not trying to be like a jerk. If we don't, I will be surprised, not because, of course, we're going to win, but because of the support so far. When we launched it, we're making a documentary right now about the whole process, and I'm sure you'll see when you watch the documentary, I have zero confidence. I'm not. When we push that button, I'm like, we're going to die. We're going to just die. It's really worse. I'm happy to say 2 weeks in, half of the way in, it looks like we're probably going to make it, which is great, but we're struggling to keep up the excitement and get people to look at those stretch goals, which only benefit them, right? And we get to make the game if we hit our main goal. But the stretch goals get everybody what they want. We can get onto consoles. We can have these cool musicians. We have a whole bunch of other stretch goals that we're going to list. But we want to be pragmatic about it. And we're also we took a little while to release our stretch goals, not because we're like withholding information, but because it takes a long time to like become a certified Sony partner to be able to release something. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to ask you to give me money and tell you, yeah, I can go to PlayStation and find out 6 months later I can't. Like, that's ridiculous. So we wanted to make sure we had all the ducks in the row. But my experience so far has been, it's hard. It's work. I own 2 companies. I've raised money for feature films. I've raised money to start the second company, for instance. It is 1-to-1 equal to trying to get investment for like a film from investment partners.
Yeah.
It's just as far as the process goes, I still got to constantly pitch. I've still got to have the right stuff already. People are asking, why can't I play the game? Well, because I'm kickstarting the making of a game.
Yeah.
That's why. We have a lot of stuff, but we had to work really hard to make sure that when we pressed go on the Kickstarter, we had enough to show, of course we're making the thing for real, even though we had to invest all of our time and money without the idea that we would ever make it. Like,
there's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee, and that's the rough part. Like, we had to make part of a game that we couldn't afford to make because we wanted to get the money to make the game that we couldn't afford. That's the rough thing. So you take that, like I said, compare it to any other fundraising opportunity. A couple of years ago, I think Kickstarter was hotter and it went much faster, and it was not like any other fundraising opportunities. At this point, with the amount of information we've got, and this is 100% true. I'm not extrapolating here. I could have just gone to a publisher with it and gotten money for the game.
Right.
I know this because we've been offered money from publishers
Right.
already. So why do we go with Kickstarter? Why are we sticking with it? Well, the truth is, we are, at least Imago Softworks is, I'm not going to Kickstarter just to get money for this game. I'm going to Kickstarter because we're trying to do something very ambitious, and we want the people who support it to have a say.
Right.
Like, that's super important. We have this thing going on right now called Starr Mazer TV, where every day we're having a Twitch stream. Some of them are, like, last night's was like 4 hours long. Tonight we're just going to play some video games and have some fun and answer questions. But tomorrow we're going to have another giant one where we talk about one of the game's mechanics. But we're doing that to get people involved. We changed the game yesterday on Starr Mazer TV. People, and we're not just randomly changing things. We're tightening things with people. But we're in the formative stage. So Kickstarter is a great way to get people involved in something that, like, your $15 matters. Your $30 matters. Your $1,000 matters, and you can see how it matters. If you just buy a thing after retail, it's done. It's locked. Right now, you can say some cool stuff, so that's pretty neat. So Kickstarter right now has been pretty similar to other fundraising opportunities, except for, and again, I need to state this very clearly, every other fundraising opportunity comes with a negative cost, right? So if I go to a film studio and say, caveat, I go to a film studio and say, hey, I need $3 million to make this little indie movie. Will you give it to me? I have to. There's back end deals, there's a recoupment and all this other stuff. But on top of that, they want to have somebody there making changes to the movie,
right?
And I didn't ask them to make changes to the movie. Kickstarter is a place where that if you're interested in the game, you can put in your either your 2 cents or your $200 or your whatever, and you can actually have say in it. And I want you to, as opposed to going to, like, a film studio with a complete script and saying I just need money to shoot it and having them change the whole thing. We're trying to build something that will entertain, not necessarily everyone. That's the whole point. Like, not every game will ever entertain everyone, but we're going to try to, the people who are interested in the general premise of Starr Mazer, we're going to try to please those people.
Right.
So it's super important to us that people help us out. Because otherwise we're going to have to go to a publisher. And we go to a publisher, we might go to a publisher anyway just for a pure publishing deal. But if we go to a publisher for funds up front, they're going to change it. It's going to go through a bunch of suits, and the suits are going to make determinations that are going to make the game maybe more fun, but I think on average it tends to be less fun, and we're not looking for that. We're not looking for less fun.
Okay, on a slightly less happy note, and I can cut this out if you want me to, no worries.
Sure.
Do you have a backup plan for if the Kickstarter doesn't go through?
You should leave this in. We absolutely do. We wouldn't have started it if we didn't do it. Yeah, we can make the game. We can make the game in a much more extended period of time. It won't be in a year. Right now it's a year and a couple months if we hit our goal.
Yeah.
We can definitely make the game. It will take a lot longer. We have the publishers that we're talking to are willing to help support the creation of the game, but again, we lose control.
Right.
We lose the fans don't get a say at that point. It will be a long time, and a year and a couple months is a good timeline for the initial game we're making. But like I said, the system is meant to support exponential growth of the story, so it might not have that. I mean, we reduce scope and we extend time. We want to make it. We've come too far and invested too much to not make it, but the Kickstarter is what we absolutely need to make Starr Mazer the game it should be.
Right.
And I don't mean pie in the sky bullshit. I'm not going to do the thing where if we got $900 million via Kickstarter, I would change the game. And we're not going to change the game. We'll make it better, but we made a promise with the Starr Mazer, and that's the promise we brought to Kickstarter. We're going to make that game.
Right.
We're going to make that game if we make $160,000 in one penny, or if we make $160 million. We're going to make that game. Freedom and scope change, but the game doesn't change.
Right. Well, I'm honestly, I'm blown away by how awesome this all sounds and how positive you're being about all of this. I'm
Thank
really
you. I'm
quite
honored.
blown away. Um, so to wrap up here, tell the people real quick what they can grab as rewards if they fund the project.
All right, so for your $15, you get the game digitally, DRM free. If we make our stretch goals, you can get that game on any system you'd like. Any system that's in the stretch goals, at least that we got.
Yeah.
That's for $15. Doesn't matter if the game's selling for $900 on a system. You backed us. You get it for $15. That's coming to you. And that $15 is $5 off what the retail suggested retail price of the game is, which is $19 or $20. It's like 19.99 or whatever, $20. So that's 25% off right now. You think you're gonna buy the game in a year? Buy it now, $15, bro, and help it get made. That's the lowest tier. You start moving up those tier blocks. Our next tier gets you uh, beta access. I'm in a car, so I'm not looking directly at it.
Yeah.
It can pitch out some ideas. There are at this point 14. But I can tell you some of the stuff you can get, and you can check. You can fix the matrix. The reason I don't know right off the top of my head is A, I'm in a car, and B, we were recently refitting them
Right.
to kind of fit what people seem to want more. There are two cool tiers that get you soundtracks and posters and stuff. There are early birds for those as well. We have a physical tier that gets you a boxed copy of the game, and the game comes on a TurboGrafx style cue card shaped USB drive, which is pretty neat. That comes in a jewel case, also in a cardboard box with styrofoam, just like old TurboGrafx games used to come. It's pretty cool. There's digital soundtrack. We're going to announce I'll just leak it. We're going to announce a physical version of the soundtrack and two different really cool physical media as well. All the physical versions of the soundtrack come with a digital soundtrack too. So if you just want to collect it, because they would be pretty freaking collectible, they're coming out. One of the tiers gets you a 3D model, like an actual printed model of the Star Wolf. I think it's like 6.5 inches long. It's giant. It's pretty great, man. But the Star Wolf is brick ship, and it's an incredible, the only surviving DSP Mark II fighter. We have cool goals that let you be part of the game. So there's an NPC goal where you get to be like a person whose existence changes the story. And you will work with us to make that happen. You can create a Gel fleet. You can also be like a Gel warlord, so you can have a multi-stage boss, which is incredible. All of our bosses for the shmup portions of the game are multi-stage transforming bosses. So helping build one of those is pretty great. We had one called the Star Legend, where you got to be one of the only surviving DSP Mark I pilots. Like you would be a character in the game. Potentially playable. Who knows? I don't know. It was for 10 grand. Somebody snatched that up on the second day, which is
Damn.
pretty great. We have right now, we launched just yesterday the ability to create an entire story module, because like I said, every playthrough has an assortment of story modules, and we'd like somebody to help design one that comes with all the previous awards. We don't do a weird exclusive complicated thing. If you get one reward that's a couple tiers up, you get every reward before it. That's just how it works. If you get the biggest reward, you get every single other reward as well. We budgeted for that. We don't like that weird thing where you've got to have like a matrix. Our matrix is just like a diagonal
Yeah. Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
Like you just get
I
everything.
saw it.
Because
It was awesome.
I hate that weird thing where you have to like get out calculators and ask an accountant to figure out what you're getting for your investment.
Yeah.
If you invest $100, you should get $100 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's super important to us. So yeah, I mean, supporting us on Kickstarter is the greatest way to get into Starr Mazer right now. Starr Mazer TV is totally interactive. You can change the game while talking to us. Starr Mazer TV will continue throughout the development process. We're going to launch a few more reward tiers that in the next couple of days, just from suggestion and seeing what people are looking for, that will fill in some of the holes that are kind of missing there. But yeah, no, I mean, we think we're being fair, and we know that everything in there we can deliver. If you'd backed in the first 72 hours, which like 1,500 people did, I think it's 1,200 people. They all got a free poster, like a special backer reward poster, a 0-day backer poster, even if they backed only for $1. So that's the kind of stuff we're doing. We're trying to make it so that your investment is respected, because we respect your investment in our game. But I don't think it's enough that we give you a game if you just give us more than that $15 which buys you the game. You gave us something worthy. We're definitely going to try to turn that money into not only development but also reward for you, because
Right.
that's huge. That trust is giant for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Don. Thanks for
Sure
talking.
thing. Yeah, no problem.
All right, cool. Guys, links to everything down below. Do you guys do Starr Mazer TV every single night?
Uh, it seems like we're going to try to do that. Yeah. We post about it every day, and we do at least two updates for the Kickstarter a day, starting yesterday. So we always know when we're going to do Star Mazer TV. But we are going to try to do it every night. But I know that at least 3 times a week it's going to be huge 3-hour Star Mazer TVs where we have Q&As and we discuss game mechanics. And last night we talked with the writer. We talked with Austin Montville, the game designer, and myself. Um, we also had the producer and the associate producer in, and a bunch of really cool cats. I don't mean like cool people. I mean actual cats. We had 4 cats kind
That's
of
the
floating
best
around the
part,
office.
right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's cool.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. So April 2016, right?
That is correct. We will deliver a game. Again, the game grows every time we drop new content in it. So we'll deliver your 10 to 12 hour experience. It's really fun, really polished, really great. But weeks later, we're going to be dropping content in there. And if we can keep that budget up and we can sell that game, our goal is to make Starr Mazer a living, breathing thing that you just get to love for long periods of time.
Awesome. Sounds great. Awesome. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.